And joining us now on kind of a tribute to Meatloaf, who we lost last week, and an icon in the music industry. And I know our sister station, KSHE, were one of the first stations to play Bat Out of Hell and played those long versions of the music. But we all know that album. We all know the background vocals on three of the most iconic songs ever. And the singer of that song is a St. Louisan, and she joins us now. We're talking about Ellen Foley. Ellen, how are you?
Good, Iggy. How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. And it was such sad news last week because, you know, that album, Bat Out of Hell, and I think to this day is still like third or fourth on most album sales ever. It just never got old. And, you know, you were so iconic on that record because so many of the good songs, and it's still hard to believe it's so long, but it's hard to believe there are only 7 songs on an album.
Well, you know, I had never thought about it until somebody said to me last week there were 7 songs. I said, "You're kidding." I don't know why I hadn't remembered that, but that's crazy.
But just to think, you know, how many great songs on that album. And first of all, to start with what it was like working with him, because if you see his videos and you see him in other things, I mean, he looks like he is so intense, but at the same time, he looks like he can be just a fun-loving guy that just wants to have a good time.
Yeah. Okay. Meat. You know, was different people. You know, if you were one-on-one with them, you know, he's very vulnerable and sweet, but you know, then he could get sort of erupt volcanically, and all of that really worked when he was singing, when he was on stage. The vulnerability and the huge emotions, because that's what those songs called for, and that was his persona, who he was.
And he was an actor. He always wanted to make sure, you know, hey, I'm just not out there singing. I'm an actor. We're playing a character, and you being the same way, that had to pretty much, you know, leading into every song, you guys had to get into character before you sang it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I suppose. Trying to remember. Definitely, most definitely. I mean, I would tell the story that we didn't sing the song together in the studio. So when I did my part, you know, the whole Stop Right There and all those bits, I asked Meatloaf to please come into the studio with me, into the recording booth, you know, brought in a chair, you know, sat him down and had him there with me. So, yes, I was playing the character, and that character changes all through the song.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, because it covers the span of this couple's lives. You know, they were teenagers, they were hot, they were married, and they couldn't stand each other anymore at the end, which is pretty realistic. You know, it was so yes, definitely a character, definitely. But I wasn't that, you know, I was like 25. I wasn't that far away from being that person. So, and to delve into who I was when I was in cars in St. Louis.
And that was your first time. That was your first time in the recording studio doing an album, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And you had
Which
Jim.
is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you became a rock star like overnight. And you had Jim Steinman, who that was his album, who passed away last year as well. But you guys, you know, and I didn't even know this till I did a little research that, you know, I thought it was just they found you and said, hey, come in. I want you to do this album. You sound great. But you worked with Jimmy Steinman and Meatloaf prior to this album. You did a project together, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was we were all connected, you know, a couple of years before we got in the studio because we were on tour with this National Lampoon show. And Jim was writing the songs. We got back to New York. We were in rehearsal studios working on the songs. You know, Jim wanted to hear them. So we worked on the songs. Then we went on the monumental quest to find a record deal and audition for many record executives, all of which, you know, ran away. They were terrified and didn't sign it until a guy named Steve Popovich came in the room and signed it up and brought in Todd Rundgren.
Yeah, that's amazing to me that you got turned down so many times. Now this album has sold over 44 million copies, and these people just got to be saying, what the fuck do we do here?
I know, and also like, hey, where's my job? Right? Wait, what happened to my job?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you know.
Did you guys know when you recorded it? And I'm sure Jimmy did because he wrote all the songs and it was just fabulous, the album. But being turned down so many times and then get it released. But did you guys know while you're recording it that we got something special here if we can just get it out there?
Absolutely. People say, did you know it was going to be such a huge thing? No, I mean, who's going to even imagine the scope that it has covered? But we knew it was fantastic. That's why everybody involved, from management to me to Rory Dodd, who was the singer and who was with me for years. He was with us. Guys that were just there to support Meat. Everybody just stayed with it without any real guarantee that anything was going to happen because we all, believed in it so much.
Ellen Foley joining us here on TMA, YouTube, 105.7 HD2. She was a big part of the vocals on Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell, such great songs as Paradise by the Dashboard Light, You Take the Words Right Out of My Mouth, and my favorite, All Revved Up with No Place to Go. Let me tell you something. Your vocals on that with Edgar Winter's sax, I mean, I still have the album, and, track 4 on the first side is all worn out. It's so good.
Oh, really? Yeah, I love that because I feel that Edgar Winter and I sort of found the same in the way we play that line. Do you know what it's like? And he's playing it, and we're almost like the same timbre. And, yeah, I love that, too. Love it.
Now, talk about, real quick, because I think everybody knows the story that, when the album came out and they were going on tour with it, and you had a theater thing, you had a play you wanted to do, and you wanted to get back in theater and said, I'm not touring. So Meatloaf decided, since Carla DeVito was going to go on tour, that she would be in the video. Your thoughts right when that happened, I mean, you could have been in the video. I mean, I'm not going on tour with you, but I can do the video.
One would have thought, then.
Yeah, but I guess he wanted, hey, they're going to see her face on tour. Let's get her face in the video. Your thoughts off the bat, I'm sure, weren't nice.
Weren't nice, and felt bad for a long time. Not a long time, but many years that, I did this thing, this great thing, and people thought somebody else did it. But, I don't know if you've heard my new record at all.
Yes, I love the single with you and Carla.
Yeah. So I'm talking to her the other day because we're, really in touch, especially since Meat, she called me the day before he passed away and let me know, and then we talked. She told me, which I never knew, that she was on the way to do the video, and she said to somebody, I don't know if it was management or Meat or who it was, she goes, "Wait, I'm not going to be lip-syncing to Ellen's vocals, am I?" And they said, "Oh, no. And she gets there, and of course she was. You don't do one live vocal, when the rest of the record is being lip-synced and they played the track. So, she was an innocent party in the same thing, in the whole thing.
Yeah,
and I knew that logically, but in my head I was like, man, she took my job. I don't know if you watch South Park at all.
And took your words, and took your vocals, and took your words.
Right out of my mouth.
Right out of my mouth. That's probably what the song should be about.
Right.
I have to ask you, too, we were talking about this morning, because, I mean, this is before, the video came out on MTV in 1981, and the record came out in 1977, and back then you didn't have the internet where you could Google who is this girl singing, so, unless you knew... Yeah, people thought that was you singing, and thought that was Carla singing when it was you. There was no way they could look that up.
I know. Well, you look on the back of the album cover, and that was the only way people would know anything. But it's interesting that you say that came out on 81 on MTV, because the real reason, you said I went to do theater, but I started doing demos for my own album, like right after the Meatloaf album came out. But you would do videos primarily for the foreign market because, before, you couldn't just get up and go over there and tour. So there were a lot of outlets in Europe and Australia and Asia for videos. So a lot of those videos were were just to send over there. So that's why I guess it wasn't played till 81 on MTV. It was also, MTV had an attitude about, what they were going to play.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that was in there too.
And I know that he did that video basically for the foreign markets, but it also, at the time, he was getting ready to do Rocky Horror Picture Show, and they were playing that video prior to the movie.
Yeah.
Well, and some of the places were still playing. I mean, he did Rocky Horror, I think, before that. But
he did. He and I went when we were on tour in '75 or '6. We were in some town, and I went with them to see Rocky Horror Show. So that was out. But then, the midnight thing went forever, and that was a brilliant idea to play the video before the movie. I mean, wow, that was a brilliant move.
Yeah, I have to ask though, it's such a great song, but could Paradise be written and played today, post Me Too movement?
Probably not. Although the woman kind of has the upper hand all through the song.
Yeah, that's true.
She's the one saying no. She's the one, setting down the ground rules. So I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, if people had a sense of humor about it, maybe, because it's really, I mean, Jim, a lot of these songs had a lot of humor in them, and he loved to use little cliches and catchphrases, and it's a funny song, so if it could be looked at that way now, who knows, maybe it would get played or produced.
Now, we also talked today, and I want to get into your newest album here in a bit. I want to talk a little bit about St. Louis, too, but you weren't the vocals on this song, but we talked this morning, I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that. Now, I could probably look it up, but I never did. So we had 3 different versions this morning. I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that. That being Darren Plowboy, who's our board op producer, said, I think it's anal. I said I think it's oral, and Tim said I think it's cheating.
Wow, I don't know. I think it's probably none of those things. I think it's probably something more, emotional or dark. Maybe it's like I won't murder you, or I won't curse your soul to hell. Which I don't know. What do I know? I don't want to be.
I think it's right.
You think it's oral? I mean, I thought, in the beginning it was probably oral, but then I think I read somewhere recently that Jim said it wasn't. I don't know. That's funny though.
I think it's like, 'cause I asked Stevie Nicks something about a song one time. He goes, "What do you think it means?" And I told her, she goes, "Well, that's what it means." She said, "Whatever you want it to mean is what it's going to mean. That's the way I love my songs, that you interpret what you think it means." And then I did my job.
That's good. That's good. Good answer. I'm going to steal that.
Steal it. Nick. Don't give it to. Just go ahead and take it your own. That's all right. Stevie won't know.
Because, like you say, I wasn't a part of that song. Maybe if I was a part, and certainly I would have been talking to Jim about it. Because when you do Jim songs, you talk about, motivation and imagery, just as much as you talk about singing. So I probably, if I had been on that song, I definitely would have had the inside as to what it means.
Okay.
But I don't.
Hey, let's talk before we get into the solo career, because one of my favorite albums of all time is The Spirit of St. Louis. But before we get into the solo career, you grew up in St. Louis. You moved to New York when you were 21, 22, 23?
21.
21. So you lived here most of your life.
I think it was just about the day after I turned 21.
Yeah. So what can you remember about St. Louis? What did you like about the city? I mean, it can be kind of boring, especially if you're going to New York and you want to be an actor and a rock star. I mean, this city's kind of boring. But what can you remember about St. Louis?
I mean, it was my city, and I kind of loved it. I didn't know about other places. I grew up in South St. Louis. It wasn't the suburbs, and I went to Rosati Payne, which was down sort of in, in the Central West End. Did a lot of theater, did a lot of singing, and I still love going back to drive around that Central West End and downtown and the riverfront, because I just think so much of it is really beautiful. And the park where there was a World's Fair in 1904. I think it's great. But then, when I do go, my sister lives out in South County, and I'm like, oh, geez, this is not exactly where I would have wanted to end up. But yeah, I had so much fun. It's particularly my high school years. Going to a girls' school, I'm glad I did, because I had so many good friends, and we could just be whoever we want and be really goofy and not think about, the guys being around, wearing uniforms every day. But starting to get to do the theater and the singing and finding out who I was, that made a big difference, because then when I was 21 years old, I knew who I was, and I took off and I did it.
Yeah, it's a shame because we're a little off in age. You're probably about 6 years older than me, because I dated a girl from Rosati, Kane.
You did?
Yeah, so you may have known her if we were a little bit closer in age.
Yeah. It was great.
Great girls. Where'd you go to grade school?
Immaculate Heart of Mary.
Okay.
Which is I lived off of Morgan Ford and River de Pere, so it was down there. So it was that neighborhood.
Yeah,
is where my school was.
Yeah, I lived down there at one point. I lived off of Kings Highway and right by Morgan Ford and that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun city and iconic musically because, if you were 21 back then, K-She would have been on the air for a few years, and K-She is iconic in the radio industry, and they're right down the hall from us every morning. Classic rock station, and I think they were one of the first stations to probably play Bat Out of Hell and probably played the longer versions. You had to cut so much because that album was so long, and
right, and Paradise. I think I read last week from Rory Dodd, the vocalist. He said that most of what was cut was sort of the outro, the end, where I guess it went on and on and on with a lot of vocals, but. No, K-She was, very formative for me, because that's obviously where I got my rock and roll in those years.
Perfect. Then, once Bat Out of Hell is done, you got some demos you're working on. Your first album comes out, and you get to work with Ian Hunter and Mick Ronson on your first album, Night Out. I mean, that's pretty tall cotton for a first album.
I'm huge, right? I always say, though, that it's lucky that I was so young and dumb, because I knew Ronson, because of David Bowie.
Oh, yeah.
But, I didn't know that much about Mott the Hoople or anything. So, I knew these guys were great, and, we're like, oh, fabulous, and we worked together. But, if I had really done my homework and known everything about these guys, I probably would have been a nervous wreck. And it wouldn't have turned out the way it did, because it was a really fun, relaxed, cooperative production. That record, Night Out.
Yeah, how nervous would it have been if Bowie just walked in studio one day?
Well, that I don't think I could have stood. People always say, because my idol is Mick Jagger. Oh, wouldn't you love to meet Mick Jagger? I say no, no, don't want to meet him. No, thank you.
Somebody told me, I was talking to somebody that interviewed you, or read an interview, said you saw Mick Jagger, you thought on a street corner and just went the other way. You weren't even about to go say hi.
That's true. In my neighborhood, because he had or has, a house, and I live on the Upper West Side, and I heard he had a house. And I might have been imagining, but I pretty much I think I saw him standing there like a block or so in the distance. And I was like, nope, can't even. I mean, how dumb is that? I could have just been on the other side of the street and seen him.
See, I'm just the opposite. If I see somebody like I had the fortune of meeting Lady Gaga, and and afterwards I thought to myself, thank God she was so cool, because if she'd have just been like standoffish, and I said, God, she just ruined my day. You're always afraid of that.
Yeah, right. But I think she's particularly, her little monsters, and I think she's like super nice person and loves her fans.
Yeah, she was.
So that was nice that you got to meet her.
It was. And then you get out on tour next year and come to St. Louis, and then I get to meet you.
Yeah, I would like that.
We'll get it done. There's so many new venues in St. Louis that have opened up besides the Hollywood Casino Amphitheater and some of the other bigger venues. But there's so many smaller venues opening up now for rock shows that it's just unbelievable.
Well, that would be so cool.
Yeah, now we just got to get people back out touring.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the new album. Before I get to the new album, though, I want to talk about, because Spirit of St. Louis may be one of my favorite albums that you've done.
Wow.
And again, you get to hook up with two more great guys from the Clash. You hook up with Strummer and Mick Jones, who you end up dating.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I loved about it is because if you're used to hearing you on Bat Out of Hell and your vocals on that, and then I get to Spirit of St. Louis, the vocals seemed more subdued. But man, they were so good, though.
Oh, thank you. If you can remember, tell me what like a favorite thing or what you really liked about that record.
Well,
it's really curious.
It just, the vocals were different. I mean, I wasn't expecting like the screaming out of Bat Out of Hell, but they were rock. But if you would have closed your eyes and just somebody wouldn't have told me what this album was, I wouldn't have known it was you. I bought it because of you, and I knew it was you, but I wouldn't have known it was your vocals.
Well,
Does that make
was
sense?
The problem. Yeah, well, that was the problem with it for me. I don't think I sounded like myself, and if it was only my second album, if I kept making albums and true to what I was into, I could have done something like Spirit of St. Louis down the line, and it would have been more accepted. But it wasn't. I mean, I think the album is super cool and interesting, but the weakest link on it, I think, is me, because I didn't get to really do my thing. It was a weird time.
Yeah, but I loved it. I mean, I loved Torchlight.
Good. Torchlight, thank you. Torchlight was the best thing. We were going to be doing a gig just this past December, right? Which I had to cancel because of the Omicron thing. But we were doing a mashup of Hitsville, UK, which that I sing, and Torchlight, because I felt they both had that great, the marimba sound, and yeah, I do. I love Torchlight. That's the standout for me on that album. I really liked it a lot.
Well, I dug it, and I dig the new album too. And Fighting Words came out last year in the summer, and did you work on that during the pandemic, or had you been working on that before?
We've been working on it before, yeah, and we had it ready to go, I think, in March last year, but we hooked up with you might have been in touch with him, a guy named Randy Haker, publicist, and he said, no, let me work on it, do a lot of press, blah, blah, blah. So it came out in August. But, we had done it, for a long time. I did my vocals at home, even though it was before the pandemic. Everybody did their parts separately.
Yeah, wherever they were.
So although I think it sounds like it's a bunch of people standing around in the studio, I think it really came together like a rock and roll band.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the wave of the future. I mean, you did it before that, but during the pandemic, so many people writing music, they had nothing else to do, and you got somebody in Australia cutting this, you got somebody in England doing this, and somebody in the States doing this, and they think, what, this worked, and we don't have to do all this travel. I think this may be the wave of the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way it is with everything. People are staying home. And so why do I need to go to the office? Right? And so they don't. Yeah.
And the single, So Happy to Be Here, you do with Carla. How did that come about? And have you guys stayed in touch after Bat Out of Hell throughout the years? I know you guys did another album with Meat together.
No. I didn't really know her, but in time she changed in my mind from, the enemy to I knew she was a really nice person and a sweetheart. We did a thing in a club. My idea of time is messed up. I would say it was maybe 2017 or something, and it was tribute to Jim Steinman, and that's when he was in a wheelchair, but they brought him there, and it was she and I and a bunch of people singing Simon songs, a tribute. And so she and I started talking then, and it just really sparked a friendship. We really liked each other. I mean, it's amazing. You know, you don't think you're going to make new friends once you get to be, you know, as old as we are. And then Meat asked us to do this trio on his Braver Than We Are album. And we just connected, and I asked Paul Figlino, who writes my songs, to write us a duet. And at first I thought, oh, it should be funny. It should be sort of histrionic or autobiographical. But then he said, nah, I'm not doing that. And he wrote just a really, really positive song about where we are in our lives. And you know, you should really find the video too, because the video has us now, but it's got a ton of really cool clips from like what we were doing back then on stage and the way we looked. It's really good.
Yeah, Randy sent me the video. I had a chance to watch it. It was really good.
Yeah, check it out. It's good.
And where can people find the album? They go to your website, or where can they find the album? And if they want to
go to my website, Amazon, you know, all the usual places, Bandcamp and things like that.
Fighting Words.
Wherever you find albums.
Fighting Words. And hopefully, you know, this thing lifts pretty soon, and, you know, we get out in 2022 and bands start performing. I'd love to get you into St. Louis.
I would love that, too.
And I love the version of Heaven Can't Wait. I'm sure Jim would be very proud of that.
Yeah, well, that's what I sang at that tribute I told you. But I've been singing that song. I sang that song in 1976 when we did a production of Jim's show called musical called Neverland, and I sang Heaven Can Wait back there then. So I sang it before the Meatloaf record came out.
Yeah, and now it's on this album too. So
yes.
And before we let you go, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about, you've done so many things, whether it be theater or music, but movies too. And we were going through some of your movies this morning because I was getting ready for the interview, and we were kind of talking about things. And, you know, I brought up Tootsie and Cocktail, Fatal Attraction, and Billy Young on Night Court, and Hair you did in the theater, right?
I did Hair in the theater, but I was in the movie too.
Did you have to get naked for that?
Pardon me?
Did you have to get naked for that? Didn't everybody in Hair have to get naked?
I did not. No.
Okay.
Well, when I did it on Broadway, you could decide if you wanted to do it or not, and I didn't.
Oh, great.
Do it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't get that.
What was funny though, because you're standing on stage, and all these people were under this big tarpaulin, and they're squirming around, and they're getting naked, and they're taking off their clothes, you know. So I got to watch that every night. It was pretty fun.
But somebody brought up King of Comedy, and they said, you're just known as Street Scum. And I said, well, I think she did the whole thing with the Clash, and that was her whole gig. Yeah. But I read where Scorsese was a fan of yours, and he could have come up with something better than Street Scum as your credit.
Right. Well, he was a fan of theirs too, but because the whole thing was that we were standing on the street while Sandra Bernhard and Robert De Niro were walking by, and we were just harassing them, and we were just some street scum. So it was fitting. It was right.
Yeah, it was a great scene, though.
Yeah, it was.
And I look at two things that I think you got screwed out of for nothing you did, but Billy Young on Night Court, and what was that reasoning? Because they thought that you and Harry were like brother and sister or something.
Oh, is that what they said? I don't know.
Yeah, because they said it didn't seem like it seemed like they were more brother and sister, and it didn't quite work out. That's what I was
really?
told.
They didn't think we had the chemistry.
That's what they thought. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's I didn't even know that. But when you say that, it makes sense. I suppose.
I don't know. I thought you were good. I mean,
thanks. Yes, I was okay.
Don't change anything.
But it wasn't my thing. You know, I wanted to be back in New York. I didn't like being in L.A. So you just have all these different experiences that add up and make you who you are. And now I have this great album, Fighting Words. It's a collection of everything I've done in my life. It's just like this moment that you're doing right now. You know, everything you've done is led up to it. And if it's a good thing, all that stuff is great, right?
Oh, that's right. And look, I've done a lot of good things in my life that somebody thought it sucked and I was gone, but I was proud. I was proud of my work, but
Right.
yeah, you just I'm loving that the album is doing well, and I'm glad that you recorded it, and I can't wait for everything to let up a little bit, and you get out there and come to St. Louis and play this new album and kind of hang out. That'd be cool.
That would be fabulous, Iggy.
Ellen, you are the best. Again, our condolences on the loss of Meatloaf and Jim Steinman earlier in the year, two great legends. And you work with both and a big part of their careers and a big part of their lives, and they're going to be missed.
Thank you very much.